Lama dan gumbo jambe yang la cha za lo kangge lo de dem nye den da nye da nam da ra sra ve chi nye den pen chi jen ze shre ni je tu kra le bam ze kang da ze be zhen ra ma re man tam do ne je ze ve ro so kan pu je dar ze yin la zhe je yong den song ru da che nye mo ni long le je zhao zhuan zhuo ze jian ma re Mizra Dungra Nyug Jinye Jenze Raje Nam Dene Dajin Saju Tars Yende Luzo Jaze Tu Gu Junrai Chudon Juni Jin Daglu Muzen Jambe Yung Lai Du Zedene Cheje Jinra Vezreje Daglu Demo Nandara Sarane Ga dan den je zhong lu dou ba ye lu zhe pa no wa ca tu so gang ge tu je zhe je wa tam je nam hong ba den yen de nyong den ba gang go dam de la da ja ca Sanje namze tudra tamje jo korwan je no se tu song to sha ja tu ba ko dam la ye la sanje pa wo den la sha je wo ja me sha na do je jin re ze sa yin bo de ba nam bra ser nam ge yin bo sham ba kun do zon ye we se jin je ge sha cha sarab kun do si ye ta ni le tam ge sam sha ge yong zong xin Chongjim Nyingpe Lamken Karma Pa Mishe Debe Chewe Tsuge Tu Laso Ta Che Namba So Samba Shongjib Chodo Sen Chepa Sar Tab Ne Chosen Ronang.
So please listen to the teachings that are to be given. Having generated the body mind in a clear and precise manner.
Lasso, tene ta passion trugnan se something je passion te shebene kabresha.
And in terms of the 6 paramitas, the 6 deeds which transcend the ways of the world. We begin with, or in the text, the author begins by explaining the paramita of stable meditation states, or samadhi. Could we, because the sun hits my eyes. No, it's not that one.
I think it's in between.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Lasso, teaching do that the Zaskin Tawutan Derisha. Shine Rapto Denpe Platon Ki Nyomun number and jumper. Sheshen Nes Zume Yelle Yangdan de Payi something Gamba Jasela and Yin Sonkit.
The afflictive, obscuring states, or the obscuring emotions and beliefs, are completely conquered by vipassana. Vipassana which has been integrated fully with shamatha. Understanding this, to practice stable meditation states beyond the formless realms for states of mental absorption is the practice of a bodhisattva.
Tati chen du di ge tsik thangpo ni teke 신내 rapto dembe laktung ki nyomon number jamba shene singe sigdege karting do sana 신내 rapto denba sedu 신내 nguisem top gore songyo.
So we have the first part of what was just said, namely the following. The obscuring emotions and beliefs are completely conquered by vipassana, which has been integrated fully with shamatha. And shamatha here is a reference to proper shamatha. That is to say, at the end of the spectrum of various levels of a calm state that a practitioner achieves progressively when training in shamatha. So here we're looking at the highest level of shamatha, as it were.
대송용도 신내게 체질라고도 간대질들의 야구 열었으나 토말 샘신종 되네 류신종
토말 샘신종
샘신종 디제네 류신종 누바치 쇼나 다시 nengu시 샘데 ndigde.
So we're looking at actual shamatha, not levels of a calm state or levels of shamatha while training to achieve actual shamatha. Here one may then ask, what is it then that characterizes actual shamatha, that specific calm state? Well, there are two characteristics. The one characteristics which is achieved first in terms of the practitioner training is the so-called mental state that is refined through thorough training, or that have been refined through thorough training. The second characteristic listed is the same, but with respect to the physical body and the state of the physical body within which the mind dwells. Here as well, there is the so-called refined state in consequence of thorough training. So both mind and body, with respect to both mind and body, a refined state has been achieved in consequence of thorough training.
다 샘지 신장 세도 칸데 진로 용고야 알았으나 펜나타 신내 감베 탑 나라서 내 통보 발을 펜나 우르덴베 신내라고 다 칸다 탑 망보시 송요래라 같이 야게네 휴휴이 텐제게 탑된도 배주시 땅네 직신내 감 데드 간참 섬레드 샘낭라 휴비체도 지점지 까와제거나 샘데 트로와든 제바지 마도 샘데 깔레카웨 그 초능 자원의 매버치 용기여 버체
신장 톱드.
야.
양메나 신장 고츠.
신장 톱드.
So how would one describe that mindset? The refined mindset achieved in consequence of thorough training. Well, in terms of a beginner practitioner, in terms of shamatha meditation, the beginner practitioner would be instructed to use a specific method by way of which he calms his mind, meaning the practitioner developing the capacity to focus one-pointedly, to begin with, on a single object of meditation. And here there are many different methods. One of them is that of focusing upon the coming and going of the breath, taking that as one's object of meditation in order to calm or pacify perturbation at various levels in the mind. Of course, there are many other methods that have the same purpose. This is one of them, the most well-known. So, having used one or many methods in order to calm perturbation, distraction and the like, with the purpose of achieving the capacity to focus one-pointedly upon a given object of meditation. What characterizes the one-pointed state achieved in this way? Well, what happens is that when the mindset has been refined at the highest level in terms of shamatha meditation, is that the practitioner has achieved a mindset where he does not feel uncomfortable or bothered by, he doesn't become upset by possible difficulties in terms of further enhancing his meditation. He may be aware of various difficulties that could arise. However, that he is not discouraged by this. Instead, there is a constant sensation of well-being, a constant sensation of the inspiration to continue in order to achieve higher levels of a refined mindset by way of other methods and types of meditation.
Tene Lu Xinjiang Segede Drup Yonte Tene Chögi Shetu Lu Gone Kawa Chisam Je Yanayang Dewachi Mato Tele Kale Kadeve Nambatan then Dungeg number of Zawadem.
Then there is the same in the context of the state of the physical body. Everyone who has attempted to meditate is aware of that there would be, to begin with, quite a bit of physical pain just in order to be able to maintain the prescribed meditation posture and so on and so forth. Now, when refinement in consequence of thorough training has been achieved as to the physical state, what happens in terms of the practitioner is that no matter what the discomfort, no matter what the physical pain involved in terms of continuing the meditation practice, the practitioner isn't discouraged, does not give up. There is again simply or just a sense of constant inspiration to continue to develop for the sake of achieving higher levels on the path to enlightenment, for the sake of making progress in the context of the Buddha Dharma.
When and so yang
and so these two perspectives of a refined state resulting from thorough training, those who have, the practitioners who have achieved those two perspectives of a refined state resulting from thorough training are individuals who do not see physical pain, suffering, and the like, or who do not react to discomfort and the like with giving up or interrupting the practice. There is rather a constant sense of inspiration to continue in the face of any circumstances. Khenpo gives the example of a present practitioner of the Drupal Kagyu school, where you have the tradition of groups of practitioners committing to meditation practice for the rest of their lives. Usually they stay in a retreat situation. However, from time to time they may be allowed to go on a pilgrimage and the like. And Khenpo Rinpoche has some relatives in the Kathmandu Valley who have settled in the capital Kathmandu, in the area of the Bodha Stupa, a well-known Buddhist monument, where Buddhists do the practice of circumambulating this monument while praying, meditating, and so on. Now, this family has a close connection with the Drupal Kagyu school, and sometimes, therefore, practitioners who have committed to lifelong meditation when on a pilgrimage very often stay with his family, and Khenpo Rinpoche visits his family there from time to time. And on one of these occasions, one of these individuals, their title, as it were, in Tibetan is Toten, which approximately means man of realization. One of them were visiting, and he would circumambulate this large Buddhist monument all day long without ever even showing any sign of being tired, either physically or mentally, which in Khenpo Rinpoche's mind would sort of point to that presumably this man, this practitioner, would have attained those states of refinement in consequence of thorough training. These practitioner would get up 2:30 in the morning. They don't sleep late. And then he would take his tea and go out to circumambulate this Buddhist monument and continue throughout the day.
때 conduct 개자양 보송다 때 또저 신경 잡은 적용돼 때 깔아산 가주면도 송도.
And of course, since Khenpo and him were staying in the same place, they had numerous conversations, and Khenpo talked about what was just said with him, and he had answered, well, when there is a certain level of refinement, difficulty is not an issue. One doesn't sense or experience what takes place as a difficulty.
근데 진짜에 당보 참는 주시네 딱 먼저지 되네 신내 당대저 감각qab라 zupo chobshira chagdo skaraya kuyo marwa je dalrang rawa tinde chirin ren gansam sam gamne 달로주 주니다가 gamsanne tene kalala shira chemidu segdo
This man had been in this committed retreat situation for 23 years, and he explained to Khenpo that at the beginning there were difficulties. One of the difficulties was the food quality, because the food is very simple. All they are served, as it were, is primarily rice and lentils. And for the first lochu, now, traditionally, when a person enters or makes this commitment, he enters the retreat center at the main monastery, which is in India. And to begin with, practitioners are instructed to practice the 4 foundations, after which they are instructed in shamatha, then in vipassana, and so on and so forth. And this man explained to the Khenpo that primarily because of the food quality, because not very nourishing, as it were, the first 10 years had been quite difficult. However, thereafter, he had told the Khenpo, the difficulties seemed to disappear, or a sensation of a difficulty seemed to not just disappear, but to go away simply, and that would be in consequence of both refinement as to body and mind.
Oya tindregi sineji ntrupayena yang dangmi tokpi sherab de mena nyamu de pongtung mare korbe gyucha logre sangwa.
Now, in terms of what was read from the text, what the author conveys is that shamatha alone is not the goal, because by way of shamatha alone it's not possible to eradicate afflictive obscuring states. Shamatha, which isn't combined with vipassana meditation, cannot eradicate the obscuring emotions and beliefs.
Tene 라송 당미 또 시럽디 유나 코베 자월 줄베 마릭바데 잠투부여데 마릭반 잠서는 요몬 소만 잠 그러와.
Whereas by way of vipassana meditation, insight meditation, insight of no self, obscuring emotions and beliefs are counteracted and eradicated. The very root of obscuring emotions and beliefs is the obscured belief in a self. It is that belief in the reality of a self, or this belief in a real reality of the self, or within the self, however one wants to phrase it, is the very root of worldly existence. So once that is gone, by way of insight meditation, vipassana meditation, the obscuring emotions and beliefs that occur because of the notion of a self are eradicated.
제자 벤나 나라서 제스 밀라레 벤남탄다 로디 베 가제 몽고 제베게 로주요로 바까와. 된저 칸데 차데 버스나 나란서 따당레 마도 밀라레바 코랑 몰라 둥알티요 마데.
Now, in terms of the life example of Milarepa, when one reads his biography, one is under the impression that he went through extreme hardships. But that's from our viewpoint. That's how we understand the descriptions of what occurred during his life of practicing in solitude, and prior to that, while with his guru Marpa the translator. One can presume that from his viewpoint, these circumstances that to us seem to be circumstances of suffering were not at all circumstances of suffering. Because he would have achieved refinement both in terms of the mind and the body through his thorough training. Therefore, he would not experience those circumstances the way we would experience the same circumstances. Now, any practitioner who practices properly can achieve these two perspectives of refinement.
Penna Shinjong Yongta Jindrubala, Tene Kase, Shinjong Drip and Gotsam do Tang, Tongbo Gambani Parla, Kassetsi Chige, Gogi Nas, Ketcher than the Shong Kong.
Toten Havana.
Oh, yeah. The Kong Son de Shinjong Ta, Jindrubiela, Ta, Konzar the Rale Gres, G. Younger than the Shana Loche, the Shinea, which Drubna. Then go to
now, Khenpo, in one of his conversations with Toten Lawang, asked him for his opinion regarding how long it would take for someone to attain refinement, or what would his judgment be as to how long it would take to achieve the beginnings of these two states. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight, it's a process. So when would that process begin in effect of practicing shamatha meditation properly, he asked Toten Lawang, who had said, well, it of course depends on the individual. However, in general, if a person practices shamatha meditation properly, refinement would begin to develop after approximately 1 year of focusing on shamatha meditation. Though, of course, the meditation must be proper meditation. However, it depends upon the efforts a person is able to do and what his karma is, the practitioner's karma. There are a few factors that play a role and that would make for differences. However, in general, it would take about a year of proper practice to achieve the beginnings of refinement.
Lakpar tuyang kandaji gogi yarsana tsikshimani ki tengyong godowa zungmi yele yongtan depayi ta tanda de kontala shine druptang de chitang ki tong de hyuirwa shine ngo yisim ta kab ndirten kab dela tempa de kandaji yarsana zo ngoni shine de songre
de songmi ndo gatene ka ngoni gishin taitsuwa
kasan hyuirwa
yes Yang Nala Tanda.
Penandirwa. That Zumi Jidan something Jidan decision and Ruviela, Sinjachin, Simichin, and Zogan the Drum Rugiarwa. Tan deep, Tandek up the La Carson de
Movoni Gishin,
Mo Nichine said
Seni
Tini Dawat the Terrenda. Tang Simpson can day, make Bakana young Matevache, Sim
Ore
Quarango Terang Pa Lurchai.
Ore Quinchis on the sheet.
Quinchis on Tilse.
Quinchi Gela Nede.
Quinchi Gela Nede.
Mikten me vagin.
Yeah.
That's Tene?
Did never Gabla. Did things in there.
Tanda de da so kam dan so me kam gi le depe shine. So if you remember, this verse continues to say the following: understanding this, to practice stable meditation states beyond the formless realms, 4 states of mental absorption, is the practice of Bodhisattva. So here, of a Bodhisattva. So here the author makes clear what type of shamatha meditation he is talking about here in this context. I don't know if all of you who watched this lecture followed the explanations on shamatha meditation during the summer course or not. However, for those of you who did, you will know that there are different types of shamatha meditation that a practitioner achieves in a progressive manner, and the highest type of shamatha meditation is a meditative state which does not take an object of meditation at all. So at that level of a calm state, perturbation, distraction, and so on have been calmed to the extent where the practitioner no longer needs to take the help of an object of meditation in order to pacify distraction. And this is then, as was said, the highest level of shamatha meditation. So the mind rests in mind, as it were, But one has to take care here when, in terms of understanding what that means. Because, as the author pointed out earlier, this is not a meditative state beyond worldly existences. In order to achieve that, you need vipassana meditation. You need to combine the two, so that there is a calm state and insight of no self. You need both. So when one says here that the practitioner rests mind in mind without an object of meditation, it's a reference to the practitioner having calmed distraction, perturbation, and the like, to the extent where the workings of the worldly mindset are pacified, to the extent where the practitioner simply rests in the so-called alaya, the all basis, the fundamental mind stream. The kunchi derava shepa shenta dun dankaka yimpegyum sunkarere sena shenta dun kanga mikten chikyorva mikpachik.
Yeah. Re tagarante.
De shugo marebe.
Tinge tanda shia munda.
Lasso.
Pen and the rich had the Gidugala. Perna something Dokambege Shinetsi Bayinaendra. Zukam something Yig Shine in Indra.
Dokamgi Shine
Sechikba.
Sechikba.
Zukam
Sukamgi Kare.
Shin Zukam ta Neri Jubdunki Sosu Shine. Zumegi yawa yigishine.
Sumeshi.
Yeah.
Densu kangale degu.
Yeah, that's a kangal and degu.
So you may remember from previous explanations, either during the summer course or otherwise, that you have to, in terms of shamatha meditation, you have to take into consideration the different levels of existence that you find in a so-called impure world system, a world system like ours. Here you have the desire realm, and the highest level of shamatha meditation achievable for practitioners at this level of existence, that of the desire realm, is a fully one-pointed mindset. Then there is the realm of form with its 4 principal levels and a number of sub-levels, all in all 17 levels, making for various levels of a calm state, various levels of shamatha. Then you have the realm of no form with its 4 levels. Within each of them, you again find a specific level of a calm state, shamatha. Now, the proper shamatha the author refers to here, and which he says is beyond the formless realm's 4 states of mental absorption, is the kind of shamatha just described in brief, where mind rests in mind. There is simply just the experiencing of a calm state where perturbations, distractions, and so on do not occur. Now, if you consider the worldly mindset, you have 8 functions of it. So we're now at the 8th of these 8 functions. All the previous 7 involve the mind being preoccupied with one or many objects of objects simply, not objects of meditation, and being preoccupied with objects of desire, etc., 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 thoughts about this and that, make for perturbation. A calm state isn't achievable while being preoccupied with this or that. Now, of course, in terms of the various levels of existence referred to in brief here, you have so many variations, so many more states. The ones that were listed are the main states found within these existences. You see, the common denominator of all of them, where one would speak of shamatha in the context of these various levels of existence, the common denominator of all of them is that the kind of shamatha you find within these different levels always take an object. That shamatha, or those levels of shamatha, are not objectless, as it were. And so, of course, independence upon the type of object the mind focuses on, you get variations. Of course, the higher you go in terms of these levels, the more calm the mindset is. However, there is still the mind taking the help of focusing on an object in order to achieve and maintain a calm state. And for as long as the mind interacts with an object, for that long, it's next to impossible to achieve insight of mind's true nature. The fact of referring to an object constantly prevents the mind from seeing its true nature. These two are different in substance. The calm state which takes an object and the vipassana state which sees no self. In substance they are different. You can't combine them, therefore.
Now,
the proper shamatha the author refers to is beyond the levels where shamatha meditation functions on the basis of referring to an object. There is no object at hand as to the calm state in question.
Pash, Namto Kangi Jesu Yong Mandowa Che, Sevish Yasha Chidawa.
It's sort of a natural state where the artifice of focusing upon anything is not at hand.
And
that results in an exceedingly high level of a calm state.
That
and that mindset is capable of, by way of insight, see no self.
Then some much in those non catch called Nanda. Tene Das again the Kari in Atenzo Ranjim ever Chalame Yong to Echi Yungiarwa.
In a clear and precise manner, this mindset is capable of gaining insight of no self, because that shamatha state doesn't refer to anything. The act of referring to anything, no matter how subtle, will prevent insight of no self. Because that insight has no reference point. The self is no longer referred to. You see, these two states are of the same substance in that both do not take an object. And unless both are of the same substance, as it were, you can't combine them. And this state is not something one can describe in words. Words are something the mind refers to, and on the basis of them can develop an idea of what is described. This is undescribable, this state, because neither mind's calmness nor its insight take an object.
See the penna, sem that meeting can't yet Jesu Mandongwa, Matthew Balage, Jaya taking Ola, Chiktena, Tongsang Gakma maybe Shargi Orwa, Mo Tongba, Salwa, Gangmijik.
So, in this calm, in this objectless calm state endowed with insight, luminous emptiness can be seen. And no one has created this state, as it were. It's not a creation of sorts. It's a natural state. And this state is present within the minds of all sentient beings.
And the
reason for us being trapped in various worldly existences is that we're unable to see this. And so if one considers all sentient beings and what they do in terms of ending up in various worldly existences, you have this wide range of worldly existences, the lowest being hellish type of existences, and then a number of other existences. You're probably familiar with the various types of existence within an impure world system. So the only thing that happens in all those existences is that people jump up and down, as it were, not just people, sentient beings in those existences. They do this and they do that, and then they do yet another thing, and they try something, and then they try something else. And the only result is that one traps oneself deeper and deeper, further and further into these various existences. Nothing else is achieved.
제자 다 텐데 지 되는 관바지 조용나 다 something person 생겨 차요. 시라 송들게 samnate kale kale.
On the other hand, if a practitioner approaches shamatha and vipassana properly, he can bit by bit improve in terms of the goal of freeing himself from rebirth in these various existences. It's doable.
Tande chik rang nyung ye nyung ne kotu vietela ta lama jawa kamu pandra wajil so yang ne yang de tep nang kore.
And in terms of achieving this goal, one needs to rely upon a guide, a guru. And if we look at the Karmakali school of Tibetan Buddhism, that guru would be the present Karmapa, Trinletaya Dorje, an individual beyond worldly existences. It's that type of guiding light that you need. Therefore, the importance of praying to such a guide and let yourself be truly guided by that guide is of utmost importance. There is the saying that success in meditation is achieved by way of trust and confidence in the Guru, by way of devotion for the Guru. So one simply turns inwardly in order to unearth the presence of mind's true nature, which has always been there since beginningless time. However, there will be experiences in terms of trying to achieve what was just described in brief. Now, one has to be very careful in terms of experiences that arise in consequence of practicing meditation, whether shamatha or vipassana, in order not to take a wrong turn.
The days to do your song number to
There is, for example, the instruction of not engaging in what one would call object orientation. You have to take into account, very often this is spoken of as not giving rise to thoughts. Well, that context, the context of thoughts, is just too narrow to translate what the Tibetan word says. The Tibetan word says or speaks of so-called object orientation, pointing to the fact of a mindset that is preoccupied with one or many objects. Now, of course, in effect of being preoccupied with objects of all sorts, objects of the senses and so on and so forth, you develop a thought about those objects. So it's not just the thoughts that the Tibetan word speaks of. It speaks of object orientation in general, with or without concepts or thoughts attached to the object orientation. Det ngô ni gi shin.
Ja, ngô ni gi shin ne cha ti chan ko shin ne se tanye ta.
Now, if you remember, the highest level of shamatha is an objectless calm state, where mind rests in mind, as it were.
Ti ne cha ti la penna nam to yeba meva kanga kaya yo maroko.
There is no discussion as to whether or not object orientation takes place. It simply doesn't, because this is the nature of that calm state. Object orientation has been pacified. Thus, this is the ultimate calm state.
So,
if one or when the practitioner who has achieved this state focuses on that state, he can, it is possible for him. Whether that occurs or not is another question. It depends upon, the practitioner, but it is possible for the able practitioner who rests in this absolutely calm state where object orientation is pacified or has been pacified, to see the nature of that state, which is luminous emptiness. Because the mindset is not preoccupied with orientating itself towards something, an object of sorts. There is no such action in the mind as to this state. Therefore, its nature can be seen.
And
thus, shamatha and vipassana are of one substance. There is no longer, in the case of the practitioner who sees luminous emptiness, there is no longer a division between calm state and insight state.
And
this practitioner doesn't need to fear thoughts. It appears that many practitioners has the idea that they have to fear thoughts. It's all about not entertaining thoughts. Some speak of throw your thoughts out of the window type of instruction. You have to remove your thoughts. If a person achieves an absolutely calm state, by way of the nature of that state, thoughts and other types of object orientation are not at hand. Therefore, efforts of that kind, artificial efforts to remove thoughts, to avoid thoughts, to suppress thoughts, there is no need for that sort of thing.
Namto te gam la chartu gores.
Namto
Korang gam la chartu gores.
Yeah?
Namto Korang
Yes.
gam gungo la chartu vaj gores.
Milarepa gave the following advice.
Namto Korang gam gungo la chartu vaj gores.
Gongi ngovo la chartu.
Ngo la chartu vaj se shila sonre imaj ger gores.
Namto ki ngovo songmindo.
Namto ngo te gam la chartu vaj gores.
He gave the following advice. What you need to achieve in meditation is to see the nature of object orientation. Which would then mean you're no longer involved with object orientation at all. You're involved with its nature, which is objectless.
Te into that deji ge nesute ngaranke yang the kanan corso samnatang rang tsavelama so ate.
So one should consider what was explained and then from time to time immerse oneself in devotion while praying to the Guru for the sake of achieving this goal. One also needs to engage in virtuous deeds.
And in
effect of doing this, progressively, or in the end rather, one is able to close the door to rebirths in worldly existences.
Tatandang issue de Oni Chine, Songarete, Oni Chine Tang, Flakoni, Halam Ham Zetikbar of Shaure.
So the kind of shamatha just explained is shamatha in the context of or essential shamatha, one would say. What shamatha boils down to in the end, meaning its highest level.
Lasso that ring and the Shashagi, then the Chödrak, that don't try Jemanam so, Zanimanimarne, Mashuyung, Tichena Taksare.
That's all for today. The remaining verses will be explained. There will be a program like before of a lecture every Sunday.
Attention number so gay, get under Shuve, Shilhag all, some young
and Khenpo asks all of you to carefully think through what he just explained about shamatha and vipassana.
Tene konambaso gamchen tinzol kandi shudu tinde songrudoga le tungpapal kalai wares toch. Te toze kamchana rona duna sana tungna ngesim de pa ya ni yomare te tigla samatang ere le habure songrudoga. Gamshena.
Now, skilled meditators say the following. In the beginning, when one starts meditation practice, most practitioners, beginner practitioners, will find quite a bit of difficulties as to their efforts in meditation, because they're simply not used to that type of thing. However, once one has gotten to some level of familiarity with meditation, one can actually meditate in any circumstances. Why? Because the mind is always with one. One is never without one's mind. And if one has developed some level of skill, one can meditate in any circumstances. One doesn't necessarily have to sit on the meditation cushion in order to be able to meditate.
Sunam de ye dam je zegban thomne yebe danam pamje de yega na je balo chubai sigbe solen ro wa